Alright, you silly pelicans. I have a bit of a different video that I want to show you guys today. I was going to do a bit of a rundown on my controller settings that I use. So I originally started playing Apex on my Xbox One. Then I switched over halfway through last year to use Apex on my PC. And I still use a controller because I have a small brain. I have consistently been making Diamond. I've stopped playing Ranked as soon as I hit Diamond this split, just because I was just enjoying playing pubs and just chilling on stream.
No, I was going to listen to that, but then I just carried on living my life.
Not at all.
No, I didn't, because, you know, I go on my instincts and they weren't good.
I was talking to one of my good friends, I'm Nobles. He's a ALGS pro in Australia, and he's actually also a controller player too. And we were going through some settings the other day on stream, and I thought I'd share them with you. Alright guys, so a couple of things I want to show. At the moment I've got advanced look controls enabled, but I'll disable that because for those of you that don't want to go through the complicated settings, you can use the settings that I was using up until really recently. So if we go through and look at the controller settings now, I've always played button layout, button puncher. What that does is basically my melee is my B button. You can see it highlighting on the controller on the screen. But crouch is this, and it just makes it way easier to crouch and slide without taking your finger off the joystick. So I would definitely recommend using button puncher. It does make it way harder to melee people, but I mean, I don't often punch people. Button puncher pretty much keeps like everything normal except switches the melee and the crouch, which I would definitely recommend. Especially, I used to play Call of Duty a lot. And drop shotting was a really big thing. So if you guys like have the drop shotting habit where you crouch and shoot, you might like that too, because it kind of feels a little bit more normal. All right, next setting, crouch button. I would definitely go toggle, basically, so it keeps it on. Otherwise you have to hold the button in to stay down. Aim button, hold again. That way, like when you aim down, you let go, it stops aiming in. I couldn't think of anything worse than running around and having to press this button again to stop aiming. So yeah, don't do that. The next setting we have here is the trigger dead zones. I actually use an Elite version 2 controller, so I actually have trigger stops on the back, so I don't have to press the button in too high. But if you have a normal controller, you can go through and adjust this to have less or more of a dead zone. I would just keep mine on the default, but you guys can mess around with that. Menu cursor speed. This is so when you're like looting a death box, and it depends on how fast like your cursor scrolls up and down. I have mine a little bit higher than normal. That way you can kind of loot a little bit faster. But yeah, I definitely recommend moving that up to just under halfway. Now, the look sensitivities. I've always played 4 and 4, which I thought was like a really good middle ground. It's really good at if you're wanting to go through and track someone, aim down sights, but it's also really easy to kind of like hit fire and also stay accurate. So I know some people that play like much higher sensitivities, unless you're like Asu or like Shroud or someone crazy and have like crazy abilities of like managing your controls. Yeah, I'd probably stick to be like on the lower than high scale. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is, and we'll go into it more with the advanced look controls, is that the look sensitivity, the lower it is, the more advantage you'll actually get with aim assist. Now, aim assist is one of the only benefits you have using controller over a keyboard and mouse. Obviously with keyboard and mouse, using your mouse, you have like way more control over long distance, especially in aiming and being more accurate. So if you actually have your sensitivities down a little bit lower, you're actually going to be maximizing the aim assist capabilities. So you can see me strafing here in front, and I'll take my finger off the joystick so you guys can see. But see how the game's kind of like aiming over the player? That's the aim assist, which basically helps it easier to shoot people. The lower it is, the easier it's going to be to manage your recoil. So I would definitely having like a lower aim down sight compared to your movement look sensitivity, because you don't really You don't really get the benefit of aim assist when you're hip firing, but aim down sights, you definitely do. So faster look movement speed, that way you can like snap between targets. So like shooting a target here, shoot to move over here. So like see how like dragging it over is like slow, but if I go shoot here and then I look over here, it's going to be a lot faster. So that's what I would definitely recommend doing. We'll go into the advanced look controls and talk about that more in a second, but if you're not going to do that, I would definitely recommend changing your response curve to linear. Now, this is normally set to classic, which is the classic respawn feel. If you change it to linear, what does it say? It says raw input. So what that means is if you move your joystick, the game is going to show you exactly what you're doing. There's no like ramp up speed. So like on classic, you'll move like hard to the right, and what happens, the game will like slowly go and then kick up into be faster. So if you just have it on linear, it just keeps it all the same, and it just makes it, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it just keeps all of the movement the same, so it doesn't get faster or anything the more you're spinning around. Okay, so with the dead zones, if you have a lot of stick drift, I would definitely recommend having this on large. If your controller is like new or doesn't have any stick drift at all, then having it on small or none. None would be pretty crazy. Small, I've seen a lot of people run. I run large because my stick drift is pretty crazy. I can run small dead zone on my movement, so just have a play around with that and have a look and see which is better. Inverted look, turn it off. If you run inverted, like actually let me know in the comments, and like I would love to like have a chat with you and maybe recommend like a psychiatrist or something. Like if you had inverted on, that means every time you look up, you look down, and every time you look down, you look up. You know how crazy that is? It's crazy. I'm looking at you. Vibration on, I like the feeling of it vibrating. It gives me a little bit more responsiveness feel. It feels weird when it's off. If you don't like vibrations, turn it off. Alright, so this is where we're going to go into the advanced look controls. Now, it might actually look really scary. You've got to go through and turn on to turn it on. It's going to look really scary, but it's actually not that scary. So let's go through and have a look. So dead zone is basically exactly what we were talking about before. The dead zone, I run 10%, which is kind of a little bit less. I went through and tested between the large dead zone and 10%, and 10% still a little bit lower than the large dead zone, which is good. It makes it a little bit more responsive. If you have a newer controller without stick drift, you might be able to get away with like 2% or 4% or 6%. Just have a play around and make sure that your controller doesn't move when you're not touching it. Now the outer threshold, I run on 1%, which is basically the lowest possible. It's the boundary on which the stick, as soon as you touch it, it'll move basically. So it's the response curve, which is what we were talking about before. Having this down to 1 and to 0 basically turns it into a linear response curve, which is definitely something you want to recommend. Per optic setting, again, I don't go through and touch it, so you can leave it off. If you want to go through and adjust it even more, go through and do that. Now, this is really interesting. This is the sensitivity that we were talking about before. So your speed, how quickly the view turns left or right. Now, I have this 300. Now, that is my look sensitivity from left to right. I feel like this is a good number for me. It makes it easier to control my hip fires like that. If you have it crazy high, you'll see that this buzzes around like crazy. So it's going to be harder to control your hip fire shots. But it is going to be faster to go from here to look over here and back again. So I find that this is manageable for me. One thing you'll notice is that my look sensitivity up and down is actually less than my left and right. It's not very noticeable here, but in the settings, you'll see. So I have my left and right sensitivity be faster and my up and down sensitivity to be lower. That's because you don't often look up and down in the game. Sometimes you will, but I find that to manage recoil, it's best to have this a little bit lower than your left and right. So vertical recoil is one of the biggest recoils in the game. So when you shoot a gun, it's going to shoot up. So the flat line goes left, right, left, right. But if you notice when I shoot, see how it goes up? That's vertical recoil there. So if you actually have your sensitivity to be lower going up and down, it's going to be easier for you to control that up and down. So you can kind of keep it like a little bit straighter. So I would definitely recommend doing that. Extra turning I just turn all of these down. So this is like the ramp up speed that we are talking about before, and to keep it linear, we keep this on 0. This is the aim down sight sensitivity. So the aim down sights sensitivity is what I was talking about before, and having this a little bit lower maximizes your aim assist on your controller, which is the only benefit us controller players get against keyboard and mouse players. So let's use that. We need that extra benefit. We don't have that crazy tap strafe that we have with the A and D strafing. So maximize the aim assist. Turn this a little bit lower, play around with it. I find that 100 is like a nice, good number for my up and down. So this is left and right, this is up and down. Makes it easy to manage your recoil on your guns. Again, turn down the extra yaws down to 0 so it keeps it all linear. Target compensation is literally aim assist. Leave it on. If you guys want to prove a point and show that you can play controller without aim assist, you can go through and turn that off, but use the advantage. Guys, I hope that that was actually pretty interesting. I wish that there was a video like this that I could watch that easily explained the advanced look controls for me when I first started playing. I think we pretty much covered everything. Guys, I stream every day on Twitch, Australian Eastern Standard Time, 8 PM. Yeah, awesome. Subbing to YouTube is free. You guys, all of you guys can do it. Do you guys own a computer? You can do it. Hi Som, I just saw your message about me saying f***ing a lot. Ooh.